whole argument.
I know, right?
We'll bring it up. Oh shit, we live. Yes.
Yes.
You're now listening
to the sound of Sports
Reports Disorder.
And it's hot up in here, I tell you. Hot up in here.
Y'all should have been here for the pre-meeting.
Yes, tonight we're going to talk about the NBA. There's a lot going on. We're going to talk about the NFL Combine. I still don't know what the purpose of it is, but we're going to watch it anyway. And then, of course, we're going to get to the divorce between the four-letter and MLB. That is us, Sports Reports Disorder. He is the world-renowned one and only, known as Mr. Logical. He was born in Texas, raised in VA, and he represents New Jersey, even though Trenton got dumbass laws like you can't eat pickles on Sundays. This is the stuff that he supports. But don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
And then, of course, you got me, your unorthodox statistician, going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Coming to you live from the Alamo. Watch out, Deontay. Here come the hook. I am 2-5. And yes, I believe in Joe Henry. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. And while you at it, do all the good things. So, Mr. Logical.
I'm listening.
I know we just got done yelling. What up, Mike? You know, One Mike Podcast, Mondays and Thursdays, y'all, noon Eastern. Get your black on black news, your gems, and the sports news. He's known as the one. But look, we just got done arguing about the NBA. And, you know, Mike would have loved to have been a part of that argument because we was talking about Duke's own Jason Tatum. But we'll come back to that maybe. We'll come back to that maybe. We'll see what time permits. But in the time being, let's go around the association real quick. So, Mr. Logical, this point that I'm about to bring up does not help the argument that we just had. But how about the Oklahoma City Thunder blowing that 25-point lead at home with Anthony Edwards on the bench?
I mean, these guys, NBA players, they get hot. I think that OKC might have a couple of they played them tough the other night. You know, so playing the team is a lot like a playoff series. You just played someone in the same week. You know some tendencies. You have some things that work. I think I keep forgetting his name because it's hyphenated. SGA's cousin.
Nikhil Walker-Alexander.
Yeah, so he was getting open and he was knocking down threes in the game against OKC when it was in Minnesota. And I believe, you know, just kind of looking around like, you know what? I think we can exploit a couple of things here. Maybe it's, you know, you just kind of know a guy can't guard you. And like I said, that's why playoff series is so tough because you can't do anything new. You probably won't implement anything new in practice when you're playing a back-to-back against a team, you know, home and away in the same week. So the play calls, they know what it is. They know the collapse. But, you know, it's a good game, good young, you know, teams going at it. I think games like that should be highlighted more. And we're going to talk about the MLB later in their, you know, ESPN
you know what I thought about when I was watching it? I was trying to figure out why the Spurs, and I know, right, they got Chris Paul, but, you know, Chris Paul needs to be put out the pasture. But, you know, they went out, they had these 2 top draft picks. They took my guy, Steph Castle, you know, at number 4. They had number 8 where they traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they ended up taking the one and only Kentucky Wildcat, Rob Dillingham. He was a big part of that comeback last night. Him and another rookie, Terrence Shannon. You know, shout out to him. You know, we remember the fake rape charge and all that, you know, but shout out to them as rookies making that type of impact. And then as I was making my rounds today, listening to all these people, I absolutely hate when we watch a team do something and then we turn around and be like, did they just give everybody the blueprint? If it took you 50-something games to figure out that you should zone Oklahoma City instead of trying to man up with them, you don't deserve to win anyway. So, you know, so this, I think this was one of those moments of we're ahead. We took our foot off the gas. And by the time we tried to figure it back out, it was just too late because you got to give credit to Minnesota for making the comeback in the first place. Especially, as I said, most of the comeback was done with Anthony Edwards on the bench. And
a lot of times you need that. That's energy because Minnesota's playing with a lot of energy. Julius Randle's out, Gobert's out.
Julius Randle with him being out, that gives me more energy to watch basketball.
Yeah, shout out to Julius Randle. Whenever I run into him, be like, listen, man, it's not my fault. His thoughts are his own thoughts.
I know. Don't even tell Pat Joe what I've been saying.
Yeah, he's already looking for you to lean back. Yeah, so when I was watching the other night, I noticed they had a lot of players on the floor that I was like, okay, let these guys get their run because
it's over.
It's over. I'm talking about like in the game against the one at Minnesota. Put a different lineup on the floor. Let these guys touch the floor. Let them get in rhythm. Let Dillingham see like, yo, this guy can't guard me off the dribble. Like he knows. So let him know, like, you know what? This guy can't guard me off the dribble. I could beat him here. I could beat him here. Then you have guys, there's no scouting report on them. It's like, hey, you don't know how good this guy's step back 3-point shot is because he doesn't get that much run. So put him out there. It's like I said, I always talked about like, yo, you got 11, 12 guys on the bench. How come you only have 7 guys in your rotation? It's like, I get everybody can't be the starting point guard. You need some flow to the offense. But if you got a guy that's a 3-and-D guy, 6'8", 6'9", that can defend and, you know, gets knocked down open shots, put him on the floor. I think Minnesota's getting an opportunity to see that. But we know as it gets closer and closer and closer, it's going to get tight. They're going to go to this 7-man rotation. They're going to have Gobert out there in these situations where they're going to switch him on to a shooter and he's going to get cooked. Because
we saw what happened with Luka, right?
Exactly. I'm like, I don't like, and the thing about the switch, it wasn't even necessary. It's very soft. So getting these guys out there now.
Sounds play.
It was like the inbound and it was like a little brush screen and it was like, oh, switch it up. I'm like, why are you putting him on Luka? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Knowing Luka was going to shoot that 3. But get the young guys out there. So maybe a coach is like, you know what? We're down 12 in the playoffs early in the third. Like, you know what? Let me get a spark. I know these guys can play within the offense, put these young guys out here together, leave Mike Conley out there to keep shit calm so they don't run every rebound up the court. Like, no, we good. Let me get that. Let's set this up. And then we run our offense.
You look into this stuff because I remember, and I know Mike remembers this, Game 6 of the 1992 NBA Finals. You know, the Bulls were down 16 with about 8 minutes left. There was no Jordan on the floor. There was no Pippen on the floor. It was the other guys that got it there so that Jordan and Pippen could do what they do. And sometimes you need that. So I think a win like this is going to be beneficial for Minnesota down the road because we've been talking about Minnesota all year. Why'd you make that dumb trade? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And here we are now. But it makes me wonder about coaching sometimes because as we get to the frauds that I wanted to bring up, the frauds that represent in that city right next to you, you know, saying like 0-7 against Cleveland, Boston, and OKC. Only one of those games was a single-digit game. Their average combined margin of loss is 20.1, all because Tom Thibodeau won't take Cat out for a few minutes to get more Mitchell Robinson minutes on defense. That's all you got to do. Nobody's saying give Mitchell Robinson 38 minutes a game or anything along those lines, and we know he's been injured for the most part anyway. But, you know, you're 0-7. And this ain't like back in, 2011 or so, when the Bulls had the best record in the league. They swept Miami, and it was like, oh, are the Heat in trouble? And then the Heat came through. Those were still competitive games in the regular season that the Bulls just pulled out. The Knicks are getting a demolition put on their ass.
Well, you call them frauds, and the thing that we can rely on in certain situations, like Tibb is going, those guys are going to play hard. They're going to play a lot of minutes. We talk about it ad nauseum. Pundits talk about it. I'm pretty sure the players talk about it. Reporters asking them about it, like, hey, why are you playing 39 minutes? Why are you playing 41 minutes? Like, guys are playing the whole game, and they're playing overtime when it goes to overtime. If he's not going to alter how he coaches, then we can expect the same results. It's going to be a great first round. It'll probably go back and forth. I'm not sure exactly what the standings are now. But
right now, if it was today, they would be playing the baby Pistons.
Okay, so you figured that just the tenacity of the New York Knicks defense will cause more mistakes for Detroit.
I think that series would look like those games that everybody hated in the 2000s, like 81-76 playoff games.
It'll look like that. Remember that series when it was Boston? I think it was Boston and Chicago, Rondo and Derrick Rose, and it was like I think it was before the 62 win year for Chicago.
Yeah.
And it went to 7, and it was like, I think the road team had won it was like some crazy conundrum, but it was like every game was competitive. Paul Pierce talked about it. And I think obviously Boston ended up pulling on game 7. It's going to be like that. I think that was Boston's championship run, I believe, that year. At least I believe they made the finals that year, but it was, it's going to be like that. But what's going to happen to the Knicks is that Jalen Brunson creates the offense. There's no other guy that creates his own offense that they put on the floor. It's a lot of guys that can shoot off the catch and shoot.
Right.
There's guys that can, drive and kick, and they're NBA players. They're going to be able to put a guy on their shoulder every once in a while, get to the cup, get a layup, hit some free throws. But as far as like, if you think about like OKC can get the ball to Chet, and he can set up, make it work, and create his own shot. Josh Hart, he's one of those guys that can bring the ball down. He can come down the hill with the ball.
Hurts.
So it's like it's not like he gets the ball at the top of the key and he sets up like Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Embiid. Like each one of them, you get the ball to them at any time. Granted, because of injuries and everything else with their season.
Yeah, I was gonna say that might not be the best example for right now.
But as far as like as an individual, the Knicks don't have a second and third guy that can do that.
Speaking of the Sixers, what's funny? So, they're talking about Embiid might need another surgery. That surgery could
they're gonna break his hip.
I don't know. No, they were talking about meniscus. I heard they were talking about.
Yeah, but they're gonna break his hip to realign his hip so he has less strain on his meniscus. I'm like, what?
Just retired, dog. But Tyrese Maxey is the 5th leading scorer in the NBA. Paul George has been. Yeah, never mind. We don't talk about Bruno. But when we look at this, like, it's so hilarious, right? Because they're 20-36 right now. They've lost 7 straight games, and they don't even potentially control their draft pick, because right now they have a top 6 protected pick that if it's anything lower than 6, it goes to Oklahoma City.
So 1 through 5.
Yeah.
So if they get the 5th pick, it goes to OKC.
No, the other way around. So they keep it up to 6, and then anything after 6.
So 6
goes to OKC.
6 and higher, their pick goes to OKC.
Right. And
so they got to keep playing terrible,
right,
to make sure that it's
just to try to keep that pick, which they can do, because you can sit down Embiid. I think this offseason, and the problem is they don't have any flexibility, because they gave Paul George that 4-year max. They re-upped with Maxey. Embiid's contract kicks in next year, the extension that he signed. So you're almost at a point where either you really believe in this core, or you might have to explore moving a Maxey and trying to see what you could get for him. But he's the young one, so you don't want to do that.
He's a young guy.
As so I'm looking at the standings. But I don't know who's taking Embiid at this stage. Maybe you could trade Paul George. Record. Maybe you could trade Paul George.
You can't. I don't think you can move any of these guys because of the money they make, and we're seeing what it looks like. It's not like a director. Like you get a movie director and he has like a bad movie. Like, hey, maybe it was just like a bad script, or the budget wasn't right, or he or she didn't have the greatest of actors. And you get them for that next movie, and you kind of compare them with some good pieces and get the best out of them. I'm not sure what team you move Paul George to at the price that team's going to have to pay, where they get enough out of it that's beneficial.
Right.
Maxey's probably your only piece that's movable, but
you don't want to.
The team drafted him. He probably wants the best deal. So his agent's going to be like, no, don't try to lucre me and like try to get me out of this money. Like, I want the best possible deal I can get. Get rid of these old heads and start over building around me. Look at the team that successfully built around a small guard. Like, just look what Memphis did. Just look at Memphis. We got a small guard, primary bump, another. But they had some good runs. Just look at them. Like, hey, how do they build around their small guard? Even the Knicks, how they build around it, and then tweak it to where you're not relying solely on your small guard putting up 28 shots.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where you just made bad decisions that are coming home to roost now because they still owe Brooklyn
costly bad decisions.
Yeah,
too.
they still owe Brooklyn a future pick
Excuse me.
from the Harden shenanigans. They still owe Brooklyn a pick, that they can't control. So that's where it gets into the point of like somebody like Daryl Morey. You bring him in because you have championship aspirations, even though, not to knock him, even though he's never won a championship. You saw him get very close on a couple occasions, and maybe you felt that with a guy like Embiid, he could supply the personnel that would take it over the top, but it hasn't worked. So I think at this point, Toronto's in a better position than you because because a team like Toronto, even though they just gave Brandon Ingram $140 million, they have the flexibility of, well, maybe we could move Emmanuel quickly, or maybe we could move RJ Barrett or somebody along those lines, and we're going to end up with a top 2 to 7 draft pick anyway in a deep draft. So this isn't one of those drafts where you have to go, oh, I got to get up to 2 or I got to get up to 3. There's going to be great talent in this draft at 11. So a lot of these teams can stay where they are. So to your point about Paul George, there's not necessarily a lot of teams that are going to be willing to facilitate that, even in being the third team. Because if I got to give up something with this deep of a draft, why? I like Scotty Barnes. I think it was dumb to try to make him a point guard, but that's where we are.
A lot of the teams, a lot of NBA teams are in this position. If we look at the teams, if we go 10, because the Heat, we know like they're going to battle, they're going to try to do whatever they can to win the play-in. So they're going to be a competitive team. So if you go in the Eastern Conference, you got the Nets, Sixers, Raptors, Hornets, Wizards.
Right.
All 5 of those teams, we can consistently say they make bad decisions. Not even the Bulls. So we throw the Bulls in there. Bulls, Nets, Sixers, Raptors, Hornets, Wizards. Those 6 teams generally over the last 4 or 5 years have made Hail Mary swing, Hail Mary toss-ups and home run swings that just falling short, but they've been throwing money at the bad decisions as well. Right. So like they've all kind of shot themselves in the foot. And if you go in the West, you got the Jazz and the Pelicans. Pelicans 14 and 43.
I think the Pelicans are trying though. Zion's back. We heard about him losing weight. I'm not saying that they're obviously nowhere near the playoffs, but I think they're going to win more games than they should. Same thing with the Bulls. I'm glad Mike brought that up. The Bulls that beat the Sixers by 32 last night, by the way, but so looking at this right now, like I'm looking at this draft order. Actually, I'll just pull it up real quick. Obviously, we got the lottery, so this isn't going to remain the same because it's going to depend on how it shakes out. But just looking at this list here,
as it's projected right now.
Yeah, as it's projected. This is just going off the records as they are right now. So we know that Washington is tanking. Utah is tanking. Charlotte is tanking. Toronto is tanking. Brooklyn is tanking. And everybody else, it may be Portland. Portland had a good streak a couple of weeks ago where they won 9 out of 10, but they're falling back to earth now. So out of the top 10 teams that we're looking at here, there may be 2 or 3 of them that aren't tanking.
Those top 10 teams are going to be drafting in that position for the next 3 years, interchangeable.
That's possible.
Simply because the young talent coming into the league, they're all coin flips. There hasn't been a lot of guys that have come in from colleges, get drafted, and then the team gives them the keys. Short of LaMelo Ball, because even Wemby doesn't have the keys to San Antonio. I think he's the shiny piece that should be the central piece of the team, but they should be more successful with having someone that unique on their team, especially with their history. So what I'm like, and they have good, solid history. Utah just wants to put on a good enough show for their home fans. So that's why their team is mostly humble guys. There's not a lot of guys that want a lot of the limelight. It's a lot of Walker
Yeah, they even
Kesslers
drafted
and
a Mormon last
Markkanen.
year.
So like they get a lot of like Kaminsky's and Popchinskys and
The
stuff like that.
Lepowskis.
Yeah, they get like those kind of guys. Like, listen, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to have a professional BYU team that plays in Salt Lake versus Provo. That's essentially what they get. Washington, they give out way too much money to guys that haven't earned it, or they take on other guys' contracts hoping to make a splash. Charlotte just doesn't play winning basketball. The best player takes 28 shots a game.
Like that.
New Orleans is holding on to their most valuable trade piece for 2 extra years. He should have already been gone. You could have already had some of these other teams' draft picks, and you could have rebuilt your team.
Utah trying to get Cooper Flagg. They trying to stash up picks so that way if they don't end up with the number 1 pick, they can go take this, and give us that number 1.
Yeah, they can try, but like, I don't think anyone who gets number 1 is going to say, you know what, I think there's another guy as dynamic as Cooper Flagg, because we've been watching him for years. Maybe he comes up short, but I feel like when Cooper Flagg comes into the league, he's going to get the ball and he's going to get the keys to this franchise. The rest of these guys are going to draft a guy like Chicago drafted the boy Marcellus, and a lot of these guys were coming off the bench. Atlanta, their guy was coming off the bench. So like, they're drafting guys in the top 10 that are coming off the bench. So it's like, you're going to be in this position a lot. If you're not, like Portland thought they had a game changer in Scoot Henderson. If they had another point guard, he'd be coming off the bench.
Hey, he's been playing well lately,
well. I drafted you in the top 3. You need to be I need to give you the ball and say, these are your 11 teammates. Get me 35 wins in your first year. Give me 35 and 47. That way, when Paul George wants to go somewhere, it's like, hey, you know what? They're doing things in Portland.
And but that's where it looks crazy.
So bad. They don't even have. I'm not gonna say there's no hope, but it's very little hope, because you're gonna have to clean house for most of these things to be successful. They're gonna have to clean their upper. They're gonna have to clean their management out, and that's gonna deter free agents.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna
and then you got Houston. Coaches. You got Houston up here. The Spurs with another 2 picks, one just outside the lottery. So if Atlanta can start losing, as they should because of the trades that they made, the Spurs can move up and get 2 lottery picks again. And then when you look at Atlanta, it's kind of like we're at that point of should have get off the pot, man. Like, just trade Trae Young. Like, it's over. Like, I don't know what you think you're going to add right now, because you just drafted Ricochet number 1. So theoretically, that's your guy. You know what I mean? Like, you drafted him number 1.
That's what I mean. You drafted this guy number 1, and you have a perennial all-star on your team. You should be better. But the guys that you're getting in are not good. It's going to take 5 years.
How about that?
So check it out. So we're looking at, we're at 2025. By 2028, 2029, we'll have these guys will probably be over 30. So Luka will be pushing 30. So you'll have Luka, Tatum, Brown
is
SGA,
already 28. Yeah.
So all these guys will be either pushing 30 or over 30. So you'll have all of your stars. I think Anthony Edwards will probably be pretty close to 30. A lot of games. I think he's going to play a lot, because he says, I want to play as many games as I can. So
Anthony Edwards is 33 right now.
Yeah, so all of your young stars are going to play through their prime. I think every young star that's currently in the league, I think all these young guys that are coming in from France and the G League and G League Unite and all these other Ignite and all these other teams have been coming in, all these overtime elite. I don't think these guys are as good as the superstars you have now. Whereas back in the day, when you would get a rookie in, KG was as good as other power forwards in the league. Tim Duncan was as good as other power forwards in the league stepping on the court. Even Chris Paul as a point guard was as good as. So a lot of these guys are developmental pieces that are going to take a couple of years, but you're not going to have that much time if you're management. So you're going to get whoever gets the number 1 pick. So Utah's getting the number 1 pick. They're going to get Cooper Flagg and do what? Go 27 and 52 or 27 and what?
No, because Utah's got, like I said, Utah's got the treasure chest. Like, remember how Sam Presti used to, well, I guess he still is. Sam Presti sits on that's what Utah is doing right now. So this might be the draft to let off. You know what I mean? Because like I said, this is a deep draft. So there might be some people that are trying to get up there, like an Orlando or somebody, trying to get a few spots higher to get somebody that they think is in hot demand, or things like that. So we'll have to see. I'm interested to see. I mean, not because I'm gonna be in Utah or anything, but I'm just trying to see how it goes. I'm just trying to see how it goes. But hey, look out for the Pacers, right? 21-9 in their last 30. Lost to the Nuggets last night though, but we're seeing a turnaround. They're going to probably lock up with Milwaukee in the first round again. Only bad news is Giannis and Dame are going to be there this time.
And they're going to lose. And then in the offseason, they're going to trade a bunch of their pieces and they're going to be starting over from scratch. When they should. A lot of these teams are putting themselves back at square one too early. I think Minnesota put themselves back. So if we look at the playoffs as first round, second round, conference, NBA finals, those 4 squares.
Lakers with the 13-point lead, by the way.
I think a lot of these teams get to second round or conference finals and then feel like they need to make a move. And they think every one of these moves they make is going to get them further. And a lot of the moves, because we'll look at it like, we're not even GMs. I'm not a scout. Like I'm a regular person. We have a regular podcast. We talk sports. And it's like, the Julius Randle Minnesota trade, not like that was a bad move. New Orleans not making more
for Julius
moves.
Randle is like asking for a root canal.
It's like trading your used sedan for a used truck that still needs a little work. It's like you don't know anything about trucks. You've been driving sedans your whole life. Like, I got
random question, real quick, since I got this Laker game on. Do you think JJ Redick is going to get a push for coach of the year?
Absolutely, he's going to get a lot of push for coach of the year. Absolutely. And Rob Blink is going to get a push for GM of the year.
Yeah, we ain't got to get too deep into it. It was just a question that I just thought about just now.
Just because he's doing better than Darvin Ham. That's all he needed to do. He needed the team to look better under his tutelage than it looked under Darvin Ham or even Frank Vogel, and I think he's accomplished that.
But Thursday is a pervert's wet dream. Because you got guys in little ass shorts running around, you know what I'm saying? So like, the combine starts, there's a lot of guys that I'm interested in seeing, and I can't even really name them because we'll be here for like 4 minutes of me just reading names. But I got my eyes on, I'll just say position wise, I'll go with that. I'm interested in wide receiver. I'm interested in running back. I'm interested in defensive back. And I'm definitely interested in defensive line because I think this draft is going to have an unusual. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that all these players are going to be good and that they're all going to pan out. But I'm just saying from a prospect standpoint, there's a lot more defensive ends and tackles in this draft than I remember, in the years that I've been looking at the NFL draft.
All right. So can we pull up the draft order? And then we'll kind of we'll go and see, because a lot of the people who win the draft combine win the combine are guys who train, say, from January through March or January through like February. Like they finish out their semester in college, and then they move to San Diego and they work with some trainer on the beach and they do all the stuff. They move to Texas, somewhere where it's always warm. And football training is life. And then they blow the combine out of the water.
Why they got them Lost Dixes highlighted like that?
That seems. Maybe it was because it was like they just kept it from last season. But I think the combine it's more for the agents, owners, GMs, the front office people to not, I want to say collude, but that's where you get the handshakes. That's where you get the agents talking to people, making moves. You'll see someone like Cleveland's GM is talking to the Eagles GM, like off in the corner of the RCA Dome, or whatever they call it now. I'm calling RCA Dome my old head. I don't listen to these new
Lucas
names.
Oil Field.
The RCA Dome. Shout out to Old Peyton, Jeff Saturday.
Shout out to Candlestick Park.
Yeah, I'm saying. So so you'll see that Adam Schefter will report, hey, it's been a lot of conversation between Joe Shed and who's the Vegas GM that
got his name because it ain't Mayock.
Antonio Pierce, Testarossa, whatever his name was. It's like there's been a lot of conversations between the Giants and the Raiders, possibly maybe Giants thinking about moving back to 6. So now the conversation is Shador going to go third to the Giants? So that's all the combine seems to be for, because most of the guys that are going to go as top 10 pick normally, or guys that just like, hey, I'm cemented as one of the best insert position.
Oh.
I'll do it at my pro day. You'll get like these guys who are going to be 6th-round quarterbacks, 6th-round wide receivers, thirds. Like, they'll go out and compete.
Here's the question:
He's not even going to run. He's not going to do any of the workouts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Here's a question, and I know we're probably on opposite sides of this because you're the logical one.
Truly.
So, how do you feel about people like Shador not throwing? And Cam Ward, I believe, isn't throwing as well.
You would want them to throw if it wasn't already a done deal that they're going to go top 5 at least.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can throw yourself out of it because you're just throwing routes against air.
Right.
So there's probably 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this draft class that are going to throw the ball better than Cam Ward and Shador.
I'm sure. Like, I'm already hearing all the hype about Kyle McCord and how he looks
how he looks, Jackson Dart, how he's going to look. So there's going to be guys but I don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball so well that the Tennessee and Cleveland GMs are going to be like, you know what?
Well, you remember last year.
Maybe I should rethink this.
2 years ago, Anthony Richardson came in there, catching all the alley-oops, and people were like, yo, he's going to go number 1. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's a quarterback. Obviously, there's not a quarterback that is going to have that ability this year. But, like, when I look at Shador, right, what do you think of him as an NFL prospect? Like, do you feel that he's a top 5 pick? Do you feel that he's going to have a long, flourishing career? What do you see when you see Shador?
I read something the other day that said Shador, like, NFL GMs are unsure about drafting Shador. Anonymous GM said if his name was Shador Williams, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So to me, I'm thinking, like, does that mean if his name was Shador Williams, it's a done deal that he would be considered a top quarterback? Or if his name's Shador Williams, I think they were saying that because his last name's Sanders, and that's why we're talking about him. So, like, I'm pretty sure, like, he was probably thinking that way. But to me, I feel the opposite. I feel like if his name was Shador Williams and he started at, from high school to HBCU, and then he goes to a program that hasn't had a lot of success, and the coach gets it up to success, and they go from HBCU, his first game he throws for 500 yards. They have a bad season, go 4-8, rebound, go 9-4, and he would be considered. I think he would be considered a top pick. It's like a no-brainer because he didn't run. It wasn't like he was out there running around like Kyler Murray and just creating all these. He was in the pocket or sliding.
What Cam Ward was doing.
He had this offensive line was constantly being criticized. Some of these sacks could have been his fault, but you can tell he had poise in the pocket. So if his name was Shador Williams, I believe he would be considered a top pick. The same way they're trying to elevate Jackson Dart. Meanwhile, he's on the sidelines throwing picks like it's free candy or free turkeys like Nino Brown at Thanksgiving. But he wants to get elevated. Same thing with Zach Wilson. So it's like I think because his last name's Sanders and he's kind of flashy and he's going to attract a lot of attention. But for some reason, I think people feel as if their job is going to be on the line based on success. I think it's going to potentially scare some teams. But I think if you draft them, I believe you have a professional guy. I believe you have a guy that, that can play well in big moments.
I think
he's a force multiplier.
So I admit I do have a question, my own internal question. I think that Shador is a damn good quarterback. I think that he's going to have a damn good NFL career, provided that, he has health and all that stuff. I do wonder if there is a deprogramming situation that he has to go through to unprime him, from the standpoint of a lot of guys do play for their coaches. I mean, for their fathers, and it's not really a big deal for real. But, when you have a father like Prime Time, and when you have the bluster and the machismo that you have as a quarterback, it just makes me wonder a little bit, because Dion, when he did it, this was 30 years ago. He was a corner.
Keep every single bit of it, because
no, I'm not saying don't change it.
Without that moxie, without that swag, without that belief that I'm better than the guy across from me,
where he is.
You wouldn't be where you were.
No,
you wouldn't make that throw. You wouldn't, like, for instance, the game against I believe it was Baylor, when he threw that pass and the guy dropped it. Shepard dropped it, right? Mm-hmm. And then to regroup, come back the next play, roll out and throw the exact same pass to a different guy, rolling to his left, right-handed, and make the completion. That's what coaches need to look at. Because we talk about, if we're going to talk about, not necessarily a comparison, but this is the argument that I made, when I was talking about that. It's like, when Patrick Mahomes, the game against Cincinnati, when they had the 4th and 6, and they completed the pass, but they got the hands to the face penalty, and they backed them up 10 yards. It was a hand to the face of offensive lineman, backed them up 10 yards. So now it's 4th and 16. Yes, he threw the pass, but he threw a catchable pass. The defender goes to the back wide receiver, gets the pass interference call. Certain quarterbacks in that situation, certain teams in that situation, after not getting the play off the first time, getting the penalty, they close up, and then they can't, it's like, oh man, that was our shot. But he was like, cool, run it again with Horn instead of, or the Wester instead of Shepard now. Because now Shepard's going to the other side. He's still 6'3". Right. You still got to guard him at the goal line. So now I'm going to roll to the same way, throw it to a different guy, make a great throw, and then win in overtime. That's what I need to see from my quarterback. I don't care who your father is. And like, being a dad that's like a sports dad, and I've talked to other people about this, I believe coaches, they treat players differently when they have a father figure, a father in their corner, because you can't talk to me any kind of way. You can't just because you might have to deal with the pops. And I think people don't want to deal with Dion, because Dion's going to be right. Dion's going to listen. Your game plan for this game was terrible. And I can tell you why, because I played football, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and I'm a coach. You got to be able to deal with that. Same thing with LeVar Ball. LeVar Ball got 2 sons in the league, and the third son that probably should have been in the league. Like, there's no reason that Jello shouldn't be on a team for the entire time that all three.
He definitely don't need to be on a microphone.
Yeah, you can hang up the mic, put the shoes back on.
Yeah.
But like, it's just you have to play with that. Like Cam Ward, he did, like you said, he went to the school of the Incarnate right down there in San Antonio,
the University of the Incarnate Word.
And then he goes to Washington, goes to Miami,
Washington State. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, you see his rise, and it's like, that's all you should care about as a coach.
Like, how was that not a
started?
Yeah.
Look where these guys started, and look where they ended up. These guys went to 2 of the smallest schools. If you combine those 2 schools they started out, that's less than the student section at most of these big stadiums.
Right.
And now they're going to be your 1 and 2 picks in the NFL draft. Like, that's the one thing they should be worried about, because you can get fired for anything. So you might as well pick the player you want to pick.
So are you convinced that the Raiders are going to trade up to get Shador, or do you think that the Giants,
all the teams in the top 10, I think the Raiders and the Jets should jump somehow to 1 and 2, very similar to how the St. Louis Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles went up to 1 and 2 to get Wentz.
Goff and Wentz. Yeah.
Goff and Wentz. Yeah. I think that's the move. Those 4 teams between Tennessee, Cleveland, Vegas, Jets, that should be the conversation. How do I get, if I'm the Jets, how do I get 7-2, if not 1? And if I'm the Raiders, how do I get myself to 2? And if I have to get the 1, get the 1. I think Tennessee can go get. I think Tennessee can see what Sam Darnold's availability is and take whatever draft capital they get from this trade between the Jets or Vegas, whoever's given the best package, and go get Sam Darnold and build either a bolstering defense or try to get a playmaker on the outside. I mean, you already have Ridley there. You have a couple of the trades you made mid-season. I think you're in that position. You're not a rookie quarterback away from competing in the AFC South. You are a veteran quarterback and some young pieces away from competing in the AFC South.
See, and they went out last year and, got pieces on defense. Like it just didn't work for whatever reason.
Getting from 9-1, Mike, is going to be tough.
Or even to 2.
Yeah, 9-2 is going to be tough. 7 is going to be tough,
especially when you got the Jets and Raiders right there. Like
they're going to give you, they're going to offer just as good of packages. So if you're New Orleans
and a better
trying
pick
to get to 1 or 2, yeah, they're gonna offer you 9 this year, and then maybe second this year, third, and the first and the second next year. The Jets are going to offer that same thing. The Raiders are going to offer that same thing, but you're going to get 6 or 7. They're all going to offer 2 number ones.
I think that's the thing is that
everyone's going to give you 2 1s.
Like just looking at this, the Raiders are in prime position, but you also got to remember, but you no pun intended. But you also got to remember,
Shador's already a Tom Brady guy. He's a Tom Brady athlete.
That too, but what I was going to say was what you can't look over and gloss over is that look at that team at number 3. You know what I mean? So they're going to go from 3-1 if they have to, or 3-2 if they have to, if they want one of these quarterbacks. So you're competing with that too. So,
but I think the Giants would go. I mean,
like if they value Cam Ward more, you would probably have to get to 1 to make sure that somebody doesn't jump you. If Cam Ward is gone, you want Shador, you can jump from 3-2. And the team that's in Cleveland ain't losing much by going because they weren't going to take Shador or Cam Ward anyway. And so they would still be able to
depends if you have Deshaun Watson out all of 2025.
Point noted.
And I was potentially thinking that. And I think Joe Shane, I just don't think he's creative enough. And
his dumbass will put Malik Neighbors in the trade.
I think Joe Shane's his pick at 3 or whatever he does early on this draft, because granted he has to fill out his whole team, and he has to rebuild trust with the fan base because everyone just watched. We knew Saquon wasn't going to do that with the Giants, but everyone just watched the guy that you let walk. Like you could have offered to sign and trade him. You could have made a move to where like. You could have sent him to Tennessee or something like that, but you played around with these contracts to the point where you didn't set yourself up for the future. So I think his pick at 3 is going to be a stable pick. I'm thinking I think he's willing to trade out of 3 to go back to 8 to get the best offensive lineman to be like, look, I made a safe pick and I got draft capital for next year.
Could Cleveland mess everything up, with the Deshaun Watson setback? I know they don't want to go into the season with DTR as their quarterback. Jameis is probably gone. I don't think that they're necessarily going to look for the Sam Darnold sweepstakes per se. They're losing Myles Garrett more than likely. Denzel Ward already said that if you trade Myles, I want to go too. So is it possible that Cleveland says, fuck all y'all, and we taking the quarterback at 2?
Once again, if you're smart as a GM, you're not a rookie quarterback away.
But we're talking about Cleveland.
Cleveland, yeah. You're not a rookie quarterback away considering the exodus that your team is kind of going through. Ward wanted to leave, Myles Garrett penning a retirement level Instagram post to say he wants to get traded. So if I'm Cleveland, I'm putting rumors out there that I really like Cam Ward. I'm getting that. That's what the combine's gonna do. I'm gonna get Cam Ward in the room, and I'm gonna give him layups. I'm not gonna do. I'm gonna have. You know how they have like the cameras in there. I'm just gonna talk to him about the plays that he already knows because I don't really want to draft Cam Ward. I just wanted him and Shador in the room. I want people to report that I got these guys in the room, and then I want the Jets, Woody Johnson, to pull me to the side and be like, "Yo, let's go have a cup of coffee at this corner of the RCA Dome," and then I want that to get reported. So then, if I'm the Giants, I'm doing the same thing because Tennessee, Cleveland, New York, New England, Jacksonville, none of these teams are a quarterback away from competing. Right. I think Vegas, it makes sense for them because they have a legendary quarterback in their ownership group that can still physically go out there and show whatever quarterback they take how to get it done, how to work, how to train, how to study. So they're in the advantageous position. And I think the Jets.
This is where it gets interesting. So this is where it gets interesting for me, though, because talking about quarterbacks, and then we'll move off of quarterbacks because, I hate talking about quarterbacks. But
it's interesting. I think the conversation is interesting this year because I think this could be the year where it's like more movement. I know they talk about potential running backs.
I think New Orleans needs a lot more, and because New Orleans was one of the teams I talked about specifically.
Very old.
Yeah, me and Mr. Logical was sitting up here because I was like, "Yo, Carolina's going to finish with a better record than New Orleans," and he was like, "What?"
Laughed my ass off.
But we got six. We got 6 of the top 10 passing leaders from college football in this draft. 6 of the top 10. You know what I mean? So there's been some rumors that I believe have a little gas. There might be somebody that is interested in Jackson Dart. I don't know if Kyle McCord can get all the way up there, but you got Dylan Gabriel back in the cut, who you're hoping to have a Mariota
left-handed quarterback. He's gonna get compared to Tua the entire combine.
Yeah, nothing like him. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I wonder though. So if you are like, say, the Jets, for example, and you can't get up from 7-2. Do you believe in Jackson Dart enough to either draft him there or potentially trade down and hope that New Orleans doesn't take him?
When's the Jets' next pick? Is it the second round?
Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, this only goes first round. So let me figure this out here while we're talking.
Yeah. So because teams after like New Orleans, I don't know if they take a top 10 guy when they have Spencer Rattler. I think they
42.
So 42.
Yeah. Hey, if Tet goes to Dallas, Mike, I'm hunting you down. Fuck that.
You can like that. That'll be.
Fuck that.
Stephen Jones said they're looking for a quarterback in the draft.
I did hear that.
Because they're losing both of those guys.
I think Dallas has to take Ashton Genty. They have to take Genty.
I mean,
because wide receivers loaded in this draft. Like you can get receivers later.
They can get the all-time HBCU rushing leader. Shout out to Jada Byers. I met his pops at my boy Andre's Solution of Excuses Halloween party last year. He was dressed up like his son. So if you look up Jada Byers, I think somebody posted in the group, but HBCU, I believe it's HBCU all-time leading rusher. He's going to be in the HBCU combine, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that was Virginia Union, right?
Virginia Union, yeah. So I think you can find, and I know like they're going to be like, oh, you can find running backs in any round, but you don't find special guys in every round. So I think if you're Dallas, you take Genty, but you just lost Zach Martin to retirement. So do you go and get the best offensive lineman you can get?
I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm going to talk about offensive linemen for about 10 seconds because that's all I got. So right. Will Campbell, from LSU is allegedly, he's supposed to be the best lineman in this draft. He's been rumored to New England at 4. But I read something today interesting on CBS Sports that he may have an arm problem.
Like it's not long enough?
Yeah, like his arms aren't long enough. And one of
they measure 34 inches.
So it says that according to this article, 33 inches is the accepted cutoff, and he might not meet that. So all eyes are going to be on his arms in this combine. This could be the difference between him going top 5 and going like in the 20s.
And this is why when guys don't throw, when guys don't measure, like when Kyler Murray didn't get measured at the combine, but he got measured at Oklahoma's Pro Day. That's how he got 5'10" and 3/4. Because if he's 5'10" and 3/4, I'm 6 foot and 3/4. So we're just gonna put that out there. So he got measured one time at Oklahoma's Pro Day when they altered the tape. So because we know damn well he's not 5'10" and 3/4. Like you can see that in his helmet, he's not 5'10" and 3/4. With cleats on, standing on the box. But
I shall call him Mini Me.
Yeah. When he was standing next to Russell Wilson, he wasn't taller than Russell Wilson. It's like, okay, you're not 5'10" and 3/4 because he's barely 5'9" and 3/4.
Yeah, but that's all the offensive lineman talk I got right now.
But the thing about offensive linemen, I think those senior all-star game weeks, I think they do more for these players than the combine because it's in pads. I can see Division II offensive guard from Mount Union. I think they're Division II up against the best nose tackle from Texas in a live drill and see can he handle one of the best SEC defensive linemen.
Damn,
and that's
that
what
was
you
really
need.
Belichickian of you.
So like I think that's where you get the most. I think these other guys go maybe for the interview because sometimes, like we talked about this before, it's like sometimes 80% of your job is your ability to get along with other people. So Jameis Winston, say he's a projected second round pick coming out of Florida State. I think his personality alone could have probably got him from 33 to 17 if a team like, I think we got an aging star quarterback. I think we're good to go. I like this guy's person. I like his energy. He might be able to move himself around. And then some of your performance on the Xavier Worthy runs a 4.34. I don't know if Kansas City trades with the Bills to get him. But that 4.21 is like, okay.
It just says, speaking of which,
we can make that work.
You always set up my segues and don't even be knowing it. But Arian Smith out of Georgia, he might be that Xavier Worthy of this combine. He's going to be the guy that flies out. I don't know if that's going to get him drafted in a certain area or whatever, but he's going to be the guy that I'm looking at that's going to have the Jets in this, no pun intended, in this combine. I'm looking at the running backs. We talked about Ashton Genty for a quick second, but I'm looking at all these running backs. I'm looking at Caleb Johnson. I'm looking at Ollie Gordon. I'm looking at Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Dylan Sampson, Quinshawn Judkins, Scatterboo, of course, Khalil Mullins. I'm looking at all these guys.
Scatterboo's a Cowboy. If the Cowboys don't get Genty, they get Scatterboo because Scatterboo's probably the biggest.
He sounds like a Patriot to me.
the name, the star power he already kind of put out there. I think he ends up in Dallas. I don't know where you pick him. I think if you're a team, like if you have, like that's why I was pissed off at Atlanta when Chicago called and they were like, hey, we'll give you a 4th round pick to move from 9 to 8. And they were like, nah, they could have used that extra 4th round pick on a guy like Cam Scatterboo. Because now you got this extra pick. So it's like, cool, we'll take a flyer on a guy who wasn't on our board, but now we get this extra pick. I think teams, if you get a team that makes a trade, like say this guy was Arian
Smith,
Arian Smith. Say he runs a 4.22 or 4.23 or something like that, and then you get a team that has like Detroit. Detroit has a lot of injuries on defense, but you're like, you know what? Maybe we might need to be the greatest show on turf. Let's get this guy in and see if we can pair him with Jameson Williams. It's like, okay, who you gonna stop deep? because I'm running this guy this way, and you got to cover both of them.
Right.
Does Detroit make their move? They're probably at 27 right now, 26, I believe, because they were in the second round of the playoffs.
Detroit is at 28.
28. So now, do you?
So, but hold on, stay there for a second. You know who's at 27? The one and only Baltimore Ravens.
You think they if that guy runs what they run and they figure like, you know what, we could teach them how to run routes later. Just go deep, and Lamar get it to you.
You got Zay Flowers to do the underneath work. You got Bateman as the possession receiver.
Who's at 25? Was like, where's Cincinnati at?
Cincinnati is at 17.
17. If the best defensive players are off the board, and then you have somebody who jumps out of the gym at the combine, that's where you get that kind of action where it's like, all right, Tampa Bay might be looking to replace get a speedy wide receiver. So maybe you got a guy that runs a 4.2 something. He ends up there. Pittsburgh, they love to be dynamic on defense. If there's not anybody there, like, do they try to go wide receiver? I think the Chargers are probably pretty good at wide receiver. They might just go defense there because they're going to lose both. I believe they already lost Mac. I'm not sure what the paperwork looks like. I think maybe it's rumor. Maybe it's like these guys actually.
Yeah, they're talking about Mac. They're talking about Bosa. And it may be others because they got people like J.K. Dobbins is a free agent as well.
Yeah, but no one.
James.
What's going on, Fleazy? So but like I said, Norman Harbaugh, he might just go give me a guard that could play guard or tackle or something like that. So
provided that their arms are 33 inches.
Houston, so if you got this guy, Will Johnson is probably the best lineman, and people feel like the 33-inch arms are Houston. They need
all the linemen help.
You put him inside. You like I think as a tackle, you probably want him to have like crazy long arms, but everybody can't be Mekhi Becton and Mulata, who are 7'5" and they got 10-foot wingspan.
Well, could the Rams grab somebody like that to replace Cooper Kupp? It's like that receiver that we're talking to, Arian Smith.
Yeah, because like a speedy guy.
The running backs and receivers are deep in this draft. From your Luther Burdens to your Emeka Bukas. Obviously, we talked about Ted McMillan already. Tez Johnson. It goes on and on. There's receivers everywhere. So I don't think you need to reach. I think the first round this year, since the draft is so deep, you can grab what you need. The biggest need that you have, the receivers will be there later. The running backs will be there later.
Yeah, like I said, I'm always about. So what we got to land at 15. I'm all about pick a side of the ball,
defense,
and make it as formidable as possible through the draft, and then your free agents on the other side. I know it's hard to do that.
For Atlanta, the young quarterback has weapons. You know what I'm saying? Bijan finished third in the league in rushing. Drake London showed a lot this year. Mooney was a pretty damn good pickup. Kyle Pitts, we're still waiting, but
I would like bigger targets. I would like a bigger tight end. For him,
Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren.
I would like a big tight end or get a tackle.
And then my guy,
you got to get rid of McGarity because he's not doing so. Either you pick something hey, I want the first 3 rounds, like the Eagles. The Eagles literally look at Georgia film and say, are these guys all draft eligible? Okay, this guy this year, these 2 guys next year, cool. We going to mark these 3 because we're going to get all 3 of them. The defensive line, they all got sacks in the Super Bowl.
So there is a tight end that I'm interested in because I want to see how his career pans out. Harold Fannin Jr., he went to Bowling Green, so that's strike 1. He went to a MAC school. But strike 2 is that he's about 6'2", 238. So he ain't playing nobody's tight end for real. You know what I mean? So I don't know if he's going to be a slot guy, at 6'2". It's going to be interesting to see how he pans out. I'm interested in seeing that. As far as defense,
real quick. Play defense, put 60 more pounds on him and make him a defensive tackle?
Maybe. Defensive wise, I'm looking at Kyle Kennard from South Carolina, Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, more specifically to see which one of them goes higher, because Scorton is the proven talent. I think Shamar Stewart is that, he looks the part guy. And I think he's going to go first round, even though he might not should not.
Sometimes you gotta just take the guy that looks the part.
And there's Jihad Campbell, from Alabama, who I know Lethal's been wanting. Like, he's one of those guys that has all the athletic ability. I just don't know how good of a linebacker he actually is. You got Walter Nolan. I don't know if you remember that name, but he was one of the prize picks in that Jimbo recruiting class out of A&M. He transferred over to Ole Miss, and he is a monster. So whoever gets him, I think, is going to be lucky. So I think there's a lot of talent all over this draft. As far as there's a high number of players that could end up being damn good NFL players. Like, I know you have your levels, right? Like, this is your surefire Pro Bowlers. These are going to be your decent players. These are going to be your special teams guys, and then so on and so forth. But I think this draft has potential to have a lot of impact day one players.
Yeah, and the thing about the draft, and we talk about it every year, is like sometimes it's a coin flip. I personally think sometimes when it's a coin flip, go with the guy that looks the part. Mike Tomlin talked about it on the interview on the pivot you did, like maybe before last season.
Oh, is that why they went with Kenny Pickett?
I think they won't. Kenny Pickett looked like a winner. He was in the building. Like I said, it's personality, 80-20. It's like, hey, this guy was always around. They played in the same stadium. Pittsburgh's a small city. Like I said, they played there. They was always in the building, in the facility. And that particular year was him, Malik Willis, and Desmond Ridder. Like, those were it wasn't like you had a bunch of different options. It's just that he didn't pan out. Like, he wasn't the guy. And they got rid of him. Like, they didn't pay him a lot of money. He got mad when they brought in Wilson. They got rid of him because it's a recognition like, hey, we missed on that one. But we hit on the linebackers. Pickens, I think the jury's still out. Mm-hmm. But what Mike Thomas said was like, for instance, the guy with 33-inch arms. He was like, to me, that's coaching. He's like, I run the coaching. I'll take a guy that someone says, oh, hand placement during pass blocking. He's like, I can coach that. Hand placement during, defensive tackle, pad level. He's like, I can teach that. He's like, I don't want a guy that comes out of college that thinks he knows everything. I want a guy that comes to my team that's ready to be coached. Mm-hmm. So that's what the draft is all about. Some guys are going to come in with so much fanfare. That's why undrafted guys, I think the NFL Hall of Fame has way more undrafted guys than number one overall picks. I think the number is substantially more. It's like 25 or 30 more like undrafted guys versus like number one overall picks, maybe even number two overall picks. So I think that number is pretty high. Like, I'm not exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it right off top, you got Antonio Gates, Warren Moon, John Randall,
and I think Shannon Kurt Sharp was a 7th round guy.
He was.
So you have a lot more guys like that in the Hall of Fame than first overall picks. So it's all about, can you coach them up? And that's what I'm saying. Some of these GMs are going to make picks to try to save their job with the one pick. When you need, like I said, Tennessee, you're not a rookie quarterback away from being successful in the AFC South.
Who the hell were the GMs that didn't draft James Harrison?
I think he was undersized.
I know, but you got to project that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you saw the skill. Like, you might not have saw like Lex Luger or whatever, but you saw the skill.
Went to a small school. Hell, Aaron Donald.
Hold up. What? Hold up. Is that the cue that was writing for Drake? Because I know that ain't who I think it is.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, my goodness.
We got an appearance, ladies and gentlemen.
It ain't even Halloween, and I'm feeling spooked out right now. Like, this is, wow.
See, like, you heard about the draft. That's in the Colts RCA Dome. Lucas Oil Field. We know what it's called.
Yeah.
But that GM, he's on the
I heard the Colts are looking at bringing in a quarterback, by the way.
because that Anthony Richardson pick was media based. There was no when he threw the ball and it hit the rafters at his pro day. It's like, nah.
For sure. No, but you know what though? It's kind of crazy, like, to actually think about, because I'm like, damn, the Sacramento Kings would be in such a better position if they had Anthony Richardson. Like, they just need somebody that could jump out the stadium and make the defense react to him. Like, get off the football field, man. Get off. Ain't nobody mishandling him. He suck. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no mishandling.
He can't throw the.
He's got Shane Steichen as his coach.
The windows to throw the ball are too tight in the NFL to not be accurate.
Right.
Like, you got to hit the short stuff. You got to hit the stuff that's open, because a lot of stuff
is
very
when
tight
Anthony
windows.
Richardson has a bad game, when Anthony Richardson has a bad game, it looks like a Kobe Bryant bad shooting night.
Yeah, he's like 11 for 34. He's like 277
it's like, yo, I saw
yards.
AI do that. Like, you know, just
so that's the problem. I think that was a media-driven pick. Same thing with the Jets. They fell in love with that Zach Wilson rolling left back across his body throw. He went number 2 overall, and then he couldn't throw a check down for 3 years.
I ain't gonna lie. I kind of want to see Zach Wilson play I wanted to see him play for the Broncos, with Sean Payton, and see what that looks like. Steichen can go too.
Yeah.
That's not nice, Q. But yeah. So last bit of business that we got to tend to, ESPN was paying the Major League Baseball $550 million per year for 7 years. And they got exclusive Sunday Night Baseball out of it. They didn't have exclusivity during the week. And they had a conversation. ESPN said, hey, look, I don't know if I can give you this no more. Baseball said, well, I don't know if I can be with you no more. So I thought about what I could compare this to, and this is what I came up with. So ESPN came to Major League Baseball and was like, yo, I got a cute coworker. She always wearing these nice dresses. I can't keep my eyes off of her. Like, I don't necessarily want to get a divorce, but I think we need to see other people and spice up our life a little bit, like have this open marriage, Jada Smith and Will Smith style. And then baseball said, nah, you could just have the divorce and you could fuck who you want. That's basically what happened in this situation to me.
Yeah, it's a tough look. They're also reporting, according to awfulannouncing.com, that maybe they're up to, like I said, getting back together, trying to rekindle that flame. I'm not sure where baseball goes, because it doesn't feel, when we talk about the NBA, we talk about the NFL. A lot of the conversations feel like, hey, it's all about getting the sport on TV and who gets the best TV deal. We talk about NBA, college football, professional football TV deals all the time, because that's where we have said the money for these big contracts are coming from. The MLB has been signing big contracts for years, and we rarely hear conversations surrounding the TV deal. So I'm interested to see if ESPN can make a good deal, or who's going to come in with the better one. And is there going to be enough star power that kind of drives it? Because baseball, unlike the NBA, their foreign players don't even speak any English, but people still rock with them. Like Shohei Ohtani still doesn't talk publicly. He might know some English.
Stephen A. say that man can't be the face.
He probably, I imagine that he can speak English. Most foreign countries, English is.
He knew how to say that wasn't me with that money that his boy went to jail for.
Yeah, on some shaggy.
He knew English enough to say it wasn't me. So look, I had a couple of thoughts on this. So first, MLS call ESPN. I think that MLB goes the NBA route. Like the NBA has a lot of these side deals. They get the Wednesday night ESPN, Tuesday and Thursday TNT or whatever, and they have like the regional stuff. They have other networks. They have the ticket, those type of things. So I think baseball is going to just try to flood the market, because theoretically you would think that You would he made me lose my train of thought with that one. You would think that having a deal with ESPN would be beneficial.
Yes.
But if ESPN doesn't talk about you, it's that whole, if the tree falls and nobody was there, like, did they hear, did it make a sound? That's what baseball is to ESPN. Like, the only time I ever hear baseball talk about ESPN is when Stephen A is talking about how Shohei can't be the face, or it might be World Series and they're showing a highlight. Maybe you see a catch on a top 10.
Yeah, it's rare in July that the MLB, which is in the height of their season, they're 3 months in,
All-Star game coming up.
They're about 75 to 80 games in come July. 4th of July weekend, America's pastime, and they're talking about free agent signings in the NBA, who's going to go where.
Right.
And that leads every show on ESPN. So I can see why baseball is like, listen, we don't need this. But I remember growing up in Virginia, watching WGN getting the Cubs and the White Sox games, like watching the Chicago channel on my local cable,
Braves on TBS.
Come on. Yeah, the Braves are on TBS. So I don't know if the money doesn't match up to where these local markets can't get a shot, but maybe MLB is like, listen, the exposure, because the opportunity to see a good baseball game for a reasonable price is way higher than even an NBA game where you're going to get, say the Phillies right now. So it's a 45, 50-minute drive for me from here to the Philadelphia Sports Complex that has the Eagles. Literally is one parking lot. Eagles Stadium, so you got the Link, Wells Fargo, and Citizens Bank Park, and then it's all parking. It's literally all in one parking lot. It's probably it's very similar to Baltimore, where you have Camden Yards and M&T Bank Stadium side by side. Everything's right there. But they have so you got hockey, basketball, football, baseball, all in one complex. You get 81 home games as a Philly fan. You could probably get good tickets for $60 or $70 any game of the week and get like good seats. You could probably get great seats for like 90 to 100. Granted, it might be a Wednesday game against the Pirates, but if you want to see a good baseball game, you take a Wednesday off or it's summertime, your kids out of school, you could get so many more opportunities to see these games. So baseball doing a better job of getting themselves on TV, creating this hype, getting their new young faces out, because baseball players come in with a lot of hype because they get drafted out of high school. People follow them. These guys are hitting bomb home runs or throwing the ball 102, 103 miles an hour. Just that alone makes people want to come to the game. When we were in Colorado, we went to a couple of baseball games. I went just to see SL Puig throw the ball from the outfield against the Rockies. Like, I wasn't a fan of either team. And it was like an 45-minute drive from Peterson, where we were at, to the stadium. It was right after school. I got in the whip, drove down because I wanted to see him throw the ball hard.
Right. Well, the good news is that baseball actually just had their first back-to-back attendance gains since 2011, 2012. So I don't know if we can attribute that probably to the rule changes, more stolen bases, things like that. I don't know if that played the bigger bags.
I think the rule changes, and I think the other sports have priced the regular fan out of it.
Yeah, because I went to when I was still in Wyoming, I went down to Coors Field and they were playing the Dodgers. I went for $8 and sat center field.
Yeah. So you can, like I said, if you want to go see, like, if you want, like, you know what, even if you're in a relationship and she doesn't like sports, but it's like, you know what, a baseball game, the ambiance of the baseball game is dope. It's not like TV where someone's constantly talking. You're sitting there. Normally it's outdoors, so you deal with the elements, whatever the case may be. But the way the stadiums are built, you get a nice breeze. There's beer, the food. It's like it's a great setting to be at a baseball game. It's just fun. Like, I'm gonna check out a lot more. Yeah.
And back to your original point, I think you put feelers out at Netflix. You talk to Amazon. I think I saw Skydance is about to buy CBS Paramount. So, maybe you see what their vision is for their purchase that they're about to make.
See what Peacock is talking about.
Yeah, see what Peacock's talking about because like I said, the NBA, we've talked about this, and like the Big Ten, the Big Ten has that $7 billion contract that includes having Saturday Night Peacock. So like I think that when you say it out loud initially, they're leaving ESPN. I think the initial reaction, like just like not really thinking about it, is like leaving ESPN.
But you got to think about it. All these streaming services. I don't have a streaming service on my phone or my smart TV downstairs that plays ESPN. I tried to use the ESPN app. Like I bought the whole combo. It didn't work. It flat out wouldn't. I was trying to watch Monday Night Football. It would not connect. I wouldn't connect from my phone to the TV. It wouldn't, like the code I get on my phone.
I always end up watching Florida State games in Spanish on there.
Yeah, it was. You get that. It just wouldn't work. Sometimes I played one night, I clicked it, I watched the whole game. And then another time it just wouldn't work. And it was like, I'm paying for this bundle. I was checking my email. I'm like, yo, I'm paying for this Hulu, ESPN, Disney Plus bundle. And I'm like, it's not working. But Netflix always works. Hulu, what's Paramount Prime, Peacock. I watch all of my football games on that. And like I said, baseball has made changes within the game that makes the fan experience better. It's like deliberately for the fans.
Shorten the game by about a half hour or so.
Shorten the game. They're going to more radar, reviews, stuff that like the argument about the Josh Allen, did he get that first down because the NFL doesn't use any kind of chip in the ball or lasers or whatever the case may be. Yeah. I don't think you should change it, but baseball, like, you know what? The fans don't like the subjectivity of the game because these refs are making bad calls.
But
maybe we should implement something. So now they implement like this radar and like the dude taps his helmet.
And at the same time, as always, I blame the fans. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody making y'all watch Sports Center. Like nobody's making y'all watch these shows that don't talk about baseball or talk about the things that you want to hear about. Nobody forces you to watch these things.
More and more conversations I have with people. Like I used to, like in my office, we have multiple different rooms and offices. There's one office that has NFL Network on all day. Like they don't have ESPN. I just remember going in, like you go to your appointment, like dental or somewhere else. Like ESPN used to be on all the time, but now it's like you go places. It's just if they have cable hooked up, they have some other thing on. They have like the news because in the military building or government building, people are like, hey, you can have the news on. So sports journalism is considered the news.
Right.
But now, like I said, most of the people who are watching when I walk around my building, they have NFL Network on, or they have and then a couple of guys are Phillies fans, so I'm pretty sure he's going to transition to MLB.
Baseball has a worse problem than the NBA from that standpoint, because in baseball, it's literally the Northeast and California. And there's like nothing in between as far as coverage or, I guess what people talk about. Because I know, back when I was listening to Colin Cowherd back in the day, he used to always say the reason that I talk about the Patriots, the reason that I talk about USC is because the ratings dictate.
When I check the ratings,
you know what I mean?
I don't talk hockey because when I do talk hockey, the ratings dip lower than when I just talk about the Lakers, or I talk about LeBron.
And even our own guy, even our own guy, Residente earlier, and he was like, "Yo, I'm listening to y'all last show," and he's like, "Oh, y'all talking about baseball?" Like, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, like, there is a market for it, but wherever baseball does go, they have to make sure that it's somewhere that's going to actually invest and give them a return, because all these things didn't happen overnight. The NBA didn't blow up because Michael Jordan was a great basketball player. You had Magic and Bird to build from.
And they had them play like 14 games against each other throughout the year just to have one TV. Yeah.
So you had a foundation somewhere. And right now you got Shohei, you got Aaron Judge, you got Mike Trout, even though I still don't know what he looks like. You got all these players that, you could feature, put in a commercial. Like, that's the problem though. Like I think that and part of this could be a little ignorance because of culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I saw Jason Tatum on TV, I know who that is. You know what I mean? If I saw Patrick Mahomes on TV, I know who that is, even though he wears a helmet. If you put that Pirates pitcher, Paul Skynes or whatever his name is, he dates Liv Dunn. That's what I know about him.
Yeah,
he's a great pitcher.
Every time you see him, he's hugging the girl dressed in purple and gold. Like, okay,
that's what I know about him. But those are the type of people that, as you're building this, forget the fact that he plays in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
just show how dominant he is
when he does in those Pittsburgh games. Yeah, but that's another thing that baseball does have, because we talked about the salary cap, because that was the last baseball conversation we had. And these larger markets are, the price of the brick is going up. The brick being like the top free agent every year. The numbers are crazy. Seeing someone sign a contract for $700 million should not be something you see multiple times in your lifetime. But over the last few years, between soccer and baseball, we've seen it like 6 times. Like guys signing contracts to do a job alongside people who are getting like we talk about Juan Soto when he bought the car for his teammate. It was like a $90,000 Tahoe, which is dope. That's what he said he would buy. Like they were asking him, like, "Hey, what would you buy? You know, if you had to buy a new car?" He's like, "I'd probably buy like a Tahoe." So Soto, who's making $700 million, bought him a $90,000 Tahoe. But do you think that we're seeing those bigger markets spending the money on the big players and driving it enough to where the Mets playing the Brewers is big enough because the Mets spent $700 million on one guy, and you want to see how the Brewers match up against them in a 3-game series in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So like, I think versus like the Jets playing against the Titans, they played last year, but it wasn't like, oh, I really got to watch this Jets Titans game because the Jets are playing in Tennessee. Whereas,
for me, I was just watch. Like, what is like Will Levis became Howard Stern for me. I was like, what are you going to do next?
Yeah. So, but you have the game Yankees against the Astros. Even though Houston's a big market, I believe they're probably like 8, 6, somewhere like
the 4th biggest city in the country.
So, but New York playing against Houston in Houston is like, okay, that's enough, because I know Aaron Judge, Mike Stanton, and the Yankees and the Pinstripes and Jeter and A-Rod and all the legacy. Same thing with Boston. That's why it really sucks when those teams are bad, because Boston going to Tampa Bay, if Tampa Bay's good, it's okay. But if Boston's good, going down to Tampa Bay and you put that on ESPN, it brings in the casual fan. The fans that love baseball are going to watch it no matter what. But the fact that the large markets do have this money and they're throwing that money around, it does help. Whereas you have a team like we talk about, we'll use the Jets or the Giants. The Giants didn't want to pay Saquon $12 million because they were paying the quarterback $40 million, both of which were low numbers. It wasn't like they were spending a lot of money. They didn't go out and try to get. They didn't call Patrick Mahomes' agent and say, "Hey, we're going to give him 10 years, $550 million. Like, they can't do that in the NFL. Whereas baseball, they can do it and they will do it. So that drives up the fan experience as well. Does it take players from other teams? Yeah. But in the midseason, when a team like, let's say, Kansas City is not doing well, but the Yankees feel like they're 1 or 2 players away, they'll give you all of their prospects. They'll trade them to Kansas City. So in like 2 years, the Kansas City team's good, and the Yankees are still good because they still have the money to buy the team. Right. So like, that's the difference, the parity in the championship runs. Because the Dodgers had a good run, but they also hit some very timely home runs. The Yankees haven't had a lot of World Series success. I think the last time they won was 2009.
Yep,
so
that's correct.
And the Mets I don't think the Mets have won since the 80s.
Well, that's what we were talking about. Like, there was like 17 different teams that have won a World Series since the year 2000. Yeah. Whereas in football, it was dominated by the Pats, Kansas City late, in that window. And then, in the NBA, it was a whole lot of Lakers, some Celtics in there.
Then you had the Warriors Cavs run, you had the
Right.
Miami Heat run, and the Miami Cavs run was centered around one guy.
Like literally, the Texas Rangers just won their first World Series 2 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about for real. Like,
yeah, because they had like
considering that they
Ryan.
play right outside of Dallas and everything. Like, that's just nuts to think about. But
yeah,
that's just
but like I said, they deliberately work on. I think they're deliberately working on the fan experience.
Well, I think baseball is the major sport besides hockey that probably has the biggest Cinderella, because like when you look at the NFL, you have guys like Eli Manning, go on their runs or whatever. But Eli was also drafted, top 5 in the draft and all that kind of stuff. So he had that expectation, even though he didn't always play to that expectation. In the NBA, like you have these guys like, you had the Heat make their run, a couple of years ago from the play-in, but that's the anomaly. You know what I mean? In baseball, you have like the Diamondbacks, Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, just because they had those two guys, they were able to take down the Yankees. You got the Kansas City
Royals. Yeah, they went from like, oblivion to, I think they went to back-to-back World Series and won one of them.
And they didn't have this like monster squad that the Yankees have or that the Dodgers have, those type of things. So baseball,
they made like I said, they made trades with these other teams in the previous years, got their prospects, and then they brought them all up at the same time. It was like, yo, you guys are young, all you know how to do is play baseball. Go out there and hit the baseball and see what happens.
Yeah, even as much trash as we've talked about Oakland, over the course of time, they've made the playoffs a couple of years ago. They got the 3rd most World Series of any team.
Yeah, they just played in a, I don't know if the ownership didn't believe in it.
Somebody's backyard.
It just wasn't conducive to like them but when them moving to Vegas, I was actually talking about that today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that last question.
Moving to Vegas, we were trying me and another guy, because he used to be stationed in Vegas and I used to go there all the time. The Tropicana is in that intersection where Tupac got shot. So MGM Grand, New York, that intersection, Excalibur, and then it used to be Tropicana. I think it's already been imploded and already started building the A's stadium. I think imagine that if the stadium, like the backstop of it is like right on that corner, because it's Vegas, I think you can buy out and flatten out a lot of stuff and still get parking, but there's also an airport right there too. So I mean, I doubt foul balls will like just be flying out of the stadium or anything crazy like that. But it's going to be a great location. Like you're literally going to be able to.
So do you think
the airport is right there on the same block?
Do you think that will help the interest in baseball as far as helping out with TV deals and helping out with, I guess, just building the sport in a way that we haven't seen it built in a while?
If they keep in mind that sun in Nevada from June to September leans on you, if they can figure out a way to keep that place either cool or shaded without building a dome, that's going to be key. Because it's like I said, there's some hotels are huge, but there's no huge hotel that can like block out the sun. In that the American Value Inn, that's gonna be gone. They're gonna burn that down. That's cheap hotels right next to the Motel 6. Then you got it's like the Hooters, and then the Motel 6 and America's Best Value Inn. All that's right there in that block. So all that's probably gonna be gone. But as long as you can figure out a way for fans not to bake in the sun, I think people will make it part of their weekend trips, very similar to how the Raiders games are.
So do you think that I lied? This is the last question. Do you think that players are gonna want to go there the way that people perceive that NBA players want to go to Vegas?
Depends on what they want out of their career. I remember a conversation that also on the Pivot. Shout out to Pivot. Justin Tuck was on there, and he said he picked Oakland because he didn't have any relationships in Silicon Valley. And I think KD had the same kind of conversation. Like he went Golden State, which is in that Silicon Valley. And then he was like, well, I'm going to go to New York and see if I can build some business relationships there. If you have like real estate aspirations after you plan, or if you want to just kind of showcase, because it's gonna the Las Vegas A's or whatever they're gonna be called, it's gonna be the easiest promotion ever because there's promotion throughout the entire city. Mm-hmm. Every truck that drives by has promotion on it. There's marquees everywhere. It's gonna be the ultimate showcase. So if you're a guy like, not necessarily Bryce Harper, but if you're a guy of that kind of popularity and you're like, you know what, I want to expand my brand, you go to Vegas.
Right.
It's there for the taking. Like every single person that's listened to this podcast who has enough money and the right outfit can look and feel like a star in Vegas for one night. It might cost you $1,000. But for one night, you can get the sparklers, you can get all the attention. The DJ will shout you out. They'll hold up the little signs for you. You can feel like a star in Las Vegas for at least one night. So if you're a baseball player and they get the money right, you can be a star in Las Vegas and be a star in that division because you're still in the same division. It's still winnable because Oakland, with bad management, not a lot of fanfare, we're still winning games and making the playoffs. You take Vegas, it's the equivalent of being a big time player in New York City as far as like how they can advertise you. Like imagine Times Square with your face on every screen. That's how I could be in Vegas with all the casinos. They're building more casinos. They're building them bigger. That you could be associated with that. So you have an opportunity to sign a couple $100 million deal to play with the Las Vegas A's. Then
Clay for three.
That's the move.
Clay for three, tied the game up, 6:50 left. You know what I'm saying? But we will be back on Friday, you know what I'm saying, with some more. Maybe we'll do some combine follow-up. You know, we're going to be looking at the association as we come down this playoff stretch. You know, this Dallas Lakers game has turned good. Lakers were dominating for a while, but we got a tight game. So enjoy the rest of your week until we see you again. We love
one thing real quick. I need to click this too. I want to give a shout out to Aston Iacano. She went through surgery. Rachel's out there in Arizona taking care of her as her cousin. So get well soon. I know it's a long road ahead, but like I said, just everyone's here for you. If you need anything, obviously you let me know. Let anybody in your family know. But like, hey, get well soon. So from Sports Reports' Order to you.
Yes, best wishes.
Best wishes. Get well soon.
All right.
And that's it.
And we love you, and we love all of you. Thanks for tuning in. See you Friday. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. And while you're doing the good things, don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Peace.